Mentor mornings, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are at. So in the 1950s in America, there was this guy named Leon Festinger. I'm not sure how to say his last name. Anyway, he was fascinated by this group of people. It was a group of people who believed that on a certain date in the very near future, that the world was going to end. Like everything was coming to a close. Civilizations were going to be wiped out. People would be taken off of the map. And they also believed that they had the answer. They had the answer to escape from this horrible destruction that was coming. They believed that a spaceship was going to come down from the sky and it was going to land on a specific date at a specific time. They were going to be able to board the spaceship and leave, avoiding all of the disaster while, the Earth and all the rest of the citizens were wiped away. And they believed that it was because that they followed these teachings and they were part of this group that they were worthy of being saved. Well, the interesting thing that happened is that the date came and passed and they were not rescued. Like they were still there, and these people gave up everything to be a part of that. They destroyed careers and reputations and family members. I mean, it was horrible what they experienced inside of their lives, but they were so committed that they did it. And after the date came and passed, and they were not taking up into a spaceship, the interesting thing is that their belief grew stronger. Is that they became more committed to recruiting new members and more committed to making it, real inside of their lives. And so that's what we're gonna be getting into. So if you guys appreciate this video, please hit that thumbs up button. If you aren't already subscribed, do so and share if you feel like it has helped. All right, so let's see here. Seneca, he was alive during around 30 AD, and he had this to say, and this is really interesting. You asked me to say what you should consider particularly important to avoid. My answer is this: a mass crowd. It is something to which you cannot entrust yourself yet without risk. I, at any rate, am ready to confess my own frailty in this respect. I never come back home with quite the same moral character I went out with. Something or other becomes unsettled where I had achieved internal peace. Someone or other of the things I had put to flight reappears on the scene. Wow, Seneca was so in tune. I mean, because he was aware of this principle. Sorry guys, my arm's getting tired. I'm gonna trade arms here. He was so in tune that he was talking about this, long before we had, Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini or Leon Festinger and their discoveries. So, Seneca was specifically speaking about the gladiatorial games. This is where, guys were thrown into a ring with no armor, meant to battle it out with a hungry lion or a bear, or they had to fight each other, swords, and the crowds were up there cheering, and the more blood and thumbs up or thumbs down deciding who lives and who dies. That's specifically what he was talking about, and we kind of see that today, but it's in a different way. But the really interesting thing here is the power that the crowd has over us individually, how we are impacted. Our future depends on our ability for sound reasoning and sound thought. And to have sound reasoning and sound thought, we need to be aware of the psychological pressures that are happening around us that influence the way that we perceive reality, how we create our values, our beliefs, our judgments, our perceptions. And so one thing to be aware of is social proof. Social proof is the idea that we are subject to become more open to information if we believe that, or if we see that the crowds around us are taking that information in. So if another person or a group of people believe something, we are much more likely just to let the information in without logically processing it or trying to reason to find out if it's valid or not. So how do we block that? How do we become impenetrable or impervious to social proof? Is one, we just get awareness. If we become aware that we as human beings, the way that we are wired just to work in a humanity, if we can become aware of how we're wired, that right there, creating that awareness will create a filter inside of our mind, because now we see it. Now we know when it's out there in front of us. That right there is one of the most important things. So we create this filter by gathering awareness that it's happening, and that is what will guard the gates of our mind. So Robert Cialdini, author of The Psychology of Persuasion, he says that social proof is so important that he listed it as one of 6 of the most persuasive techniques we have to influence the thought, beliefs, opinions of people individually or collectively. So that's why we've seen news stations hire groups of people to stand behind the camera chanting something, one thing or another, that ultimately leads to what that news organization is trying to convince us of or towards. So the power of collective will challenge us. Like, we are constantly going to be challenged, especially today, with the amount of information that's being thrown about or is out there in front of us. We're going to be challenged today by the power of the collective, and they will challenge us with these things. They will challenge us with guilt, shame, scarcity, fear, worry, lust, passion, or salvation. These are all emotional lures that will pull us into automatically accepting the information that's being presented to us rather than looking critically and analyzing the information. And one thing to realize is that while each one of us, I know we are all solid, I know that we use our critical thought, but to recognize that we are still human, that we are still functioning with a human mass inside of our heads called a brain, and we are all wired in very similar ways and all subject to it. So, you know, a way to think about this is that we choose to be the rock in the ocean. Rather than being the seaweed that gets pounded against the shore whenever the tide comes in or the water changes, we're the rock in the ocean that does not move. So guys, if you appreciate this type of information and you want to learn more about the power of persuasion and how you can protect yourself against it, be sure to grab the PDF down below, the Awakened Warriors Guide. All right, guys, I will be here tomorrow on Mentor Mornings. If you appreciate this video, please hit the thumbs up button and share if you feel like it was worthwhile to somebody. All right, guys, later. Rise unconquered.